It's going to be a pickle in like 5 minutes, so that's why I keep calling it a pickle. Harvesting pickles is kind of prickly business. They are covered in these spines that actually really hurt when you grab them straight on. So what I like to try and do when I'm going to harvest my pickles, I kind of brush down on it first, and then you can hold on to the pickle without stabbing yourself. Cucumber.
This week I decided to join the Three Rivers Homestead Every Bit Counts Challenge. If you haven't heard of this challenge before, the idea is to preserve something every day during the month of August, even if it's just a little bit, because every bit counts. This was actually really good timing for me because our garden is in full production right now, and the truth is I've never had a garden this big before. So this garden is putting out way more produce than I'm used to, and I really needed a jump start to get myself into preserving, and that's what participating in this challenge did for me. The first thing that I worked on preserving was cucumbers by making them into pickles. I've made a few batches of refrigerator pickles already this year, but this was my first time water bath canning pickles. I just think I'm going to have enough pickles overall that there won't be room for them in the fridge. I made 5 pints of pickles. 1 of those I put in a pepper so they would be spicy. Our cherry tomatoes have been coming in like crazy, and so I sliced up some cherry tomatoes to make sun-dried tomatoes.
Got this new shelf, 350 pounds per shelf. So I can start putting my jars up on here.
I'll admit this challenge was harder to actually do than I thought it was going to be. So I didn't get something preserved every single day, but I did work on preservation every day. Because I'm new to having a garden this big and preserving on this scale, I don't quite have all the infrastructure I need already for doing this type of preservation. So one thing that I needed this week was a new shelf to store all my canned goods. So to count towards my challenge, I put together this shelf one day and got all my jars stacked on it. Each shelf is rated for 350 pounds. And a pint's a pound the world around, so a pint of water is about a pound, and I don't know, a jar's another pound, but point is, you can get a lot of jars on this shelf. I do have a climber though, so we made sure to anchor the shelf to the studs in the wall. I went ahead and picked green beans. Both my dragon tongue beans and the traditional green beans. But I didn't have the gumption to work on getting them in jars today. Next, I harvested from the garden to make some homemade pesto. I've explained on my channel before that I have to make a nut-free pesto because one of my sons is allergic to nuts. So we can't substitute any of the different kind of nuts that people use to make pesto. But the thing that I've found that works really good is substituting chickpeas for the nuts. They have a good texture to replace the nuts in the pesto recipe.
Pesto is super concentrated flavor, so I always pack my pesto in just small jars. These are half pints and even quarter pints. You want to make sure that your pesto has at least a thin layer of olive oil on the top, and that's going to keep the pesto from turning brown on the top. It doesn't have to be very thick. I'm going to store these in the freezer, and there's a number of different ways that you can do that. You can use the regular lids and bands, but I don't like to use my lids if they're new. I would rather use them for canning. Ball actually sells plastic lids that can cover your jars, but I don't have any of the regular mouth available right now. They're all in my fridge. I found these at antique stores. I have quite a few of these vintage Ball jar lids, and I will use these sometimes when I'm storing things in the fridge or freezer. My tip for if I don't have any the right size is I've actually discovered that the peanut butter lids from these 15-ounce peanut butter jars actually work perfect on a regular mouth Ball jar.
I made 4 little jars of pesto. Finally, a couple days later, my oven helped. Sun-dried tomatoes were finally leathery. I knew they were dry enough and ready to go into a jar. But frankly, that whole process took way too long. So I did a little more shopping and ordered a dehydrator. I didn't have a ton of time to use it the first day. I picked all the cherry tomatoes from the other side of the trellis. Now I need to come pick tomatoes from this side of the trellis. But I think I need to empty my colander first. But I did get another tray of sun-dried tomatoes in, and I went ahead and dried a tray of bananas as well because my kids thought that sounded really cool, and I appreciate it. It seems like a good idea to maybe keep one of the fruit roll trays on the bottom if you don't have it all the way filled up, because some of these things as they dehydrate shrink up and then fall through. Look how much prettier they are in the dehydrator than the ones that I just did in the air and a little bit in the oven. So pretty. Between my 2 batches, I got 1 jar of sun-dried tomatoes. Finally, I got around to working on my beans. I have never actually canned green beans before, but I grew up eating canned green beans. I got my mom's Ball Blue book out and followed the directions. First, I worked on the dragon tongue beans. They're so pretty, but sadly, when you cook them, they lose their purple markings. I preserved 8 jars of green beans. If you want to follow along with the other things we're harvesting and doing in the garden for the remainder of this summer, please subscribe. The last thing I preserved this week was a recipe from the Ball website called bruschetta in a jar. I just thought it would work really well with my colored cherry tomatoes. I preserved 3 jars of bruschetta in a jar.